Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, October 5th, 2020. On the show today, news, listener questions, and in our main segment, Jim continues with the history of Disney princesses in the parks. Let's get started by bringing in the man who points out that many of the musical numbers in Hamilton are not performed exactly as they occurred in history. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
I have spent far too much time watching Jonathan Groff as the King of England. That may be one of my favorite things in the history of musical theater. I will send an entire battalion to kill your wife and family. Just sort of like, there's a happy moment in a show.
Exactly. You're not going to put that on a t-shirt. Or maybe you are. I don't know.
Maybe you are. So, yeah.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thank you all, Bandcamp subscribers, and thanks to new subscribers, J Dubs, Taylor G00, and JB210, and longtime subscribers Corey1899, MJS805, and Heather L. Jim, these are the folks who tend to the flora and fauna in the Pandoran Gardens over at Navi River Journey at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And when I asked them what surprised them the most about the alien plant life there, they said, the number of interns we've lost to flesh eating, the wondrous beauty of nature in all its forms. True story.
Is it wrong of me that the thing that impresses me the most out of that entire attraction are those giant leaves you pass under and you watch some sort of a frog thing jump from one
jumping on them?
leaf?
Yeah.
I think that may be my favorite effect out of that entire attraction.
It's mine too, I think. The fact that somebody came up with that. And think of how many boat rides Disney's done over the years in the past. And for someone to come up with that as an original effect for that ride was just, it just shows you how creative those people are.
That it does.
All right, folks, let's do the news. And the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at storybookdestinations.com. All right, Jim, the big news for this week is the layoffs. As we heard last week, Disney announced that it'll be laying off 28,000 cast members. Disney says 2/3 of them are part-time cast members, but still. And it appears that there are layoffs in every business area, Imagineering, DVC, every area of the parks, college program, international CMs, and entertainment, including the Grand Floridian Orchestra, the Spirit of Aloha performers. What have you heard about this, Jim?
Just last night, was able to confirm that just at Imagineering, there's over 400 people that are being let go, and that's out of just the Glendale campus, let alone the folks who are also being let go, in Paris and at Walt Disney World and the like.
Yeah, Disney had most of these employees furloughed. They were paying health insurance for them. And I think this is Disney saying that they don't expect business to come back in large numbers anytime soon. So basically, I think what we are seeing now is what they're expecting, at least for the next 3 months. The timing of the announcement was the end of, in the very last days of Disney's fiscal 2020. So the fiscal year for Disney starts October 1. So they're in fiscal 2021. I'm sure that's the timing of that announcement wasn't a coincidence.
No.
They wanted to take whatever hit financially they did in 2020, not in 2021.
And then put it in the rear view.
Yeah, not great. There's really not a whole lot else to say on this. It's just not good news.
No, it isn't. But it's kind of the hard reality of the world we live in right at this moment. And, we can only hope for better times in 2021 and beyond. But there's so much that needs to change before we can see anything approaching a comeback.
Yeah. When you're talking about tourism, I think the thing that everybody's relying on is a widely available vaccine that's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably not going to be widely distributed until beginning next year. By the way, did you see that the Center for Disease Control really, really, really wanted to say no cruising until February 2021?
Ooh, no,
and then they didn't. Yeah. So the wording came out and said no cruising through the end of October, which is the end of this month. But the internal discussion was they wanted to come out and say, I guess it was another 100 days until February 2021. But then they that didn't make it past the review process. And again, with cruising, you're tight quarters. But still, I think of two minds on this. One, we can all acknowledge the risks. Number two, Disney's done a pretty decent job of keeping people relatively safe in the parks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cruising is a different animal. But I mean, if anybody's going to get it right, it's going to be Disney. So
Yeah, one would hope. Also, the hard reality of when you're cruising between where your port cities are versus where you're headed.
yeah, I don't think anyone's getting off a cruise ship. I mean, you're not, right. It's a floating hotel at that point.
There we go.
There are relatively few countries that are going to let you in.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right, we'll have more to say on this later on. Jim, I do want to point out in other news, Disney filed 2 patents this week.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them related to daylight visible holographic displays, which tells me they're still working on things for the Star Wars hotel.
The daytime holographic displays will also factor into the Doctor Strange experience that you will get at the Avengers campus.
Okay.
There's concept art out there of the cast member who's playing Doctor Strange showing you the proper hand movements to make the force shield that he creates. And the thing is, you'll be standing with him and you'll make the same gestures, and out directly in front of you, you'll see the very same energy shield form.
Oh, that'll be a neat effect.
It will be a neat effect, but trust me, holograms that are easy to see in daytime are definitely a part of the Star Wars hotel. And you did see the blueprint that leaked, right?
I need some sort of internal confirmation before I mention it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of us is far more professional than the other folks. I'm just
I need asking around, right? We'll see. I did notice that there were in the blueprints there were standard cabins and first class cabins, which you would expect.
We go. Okay.
All right, Jim. Let's do some listener questions, and this one's related to the news. This is from Avon. Is there serious worry to be had about the financial viability or long-term health of the Walt Disney World Resort? Also, can you see an orchestra returning to the Grand Floridian ever in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? So, Jim, first question: financial viability or long-term health of the Walt Disney World Resort?
You've got a lot of hard goods. You've got resorts, you've got theme parks, you have millions upon millions of people who have very happy memories of having gone there. I mean, I think we are definitely in a trough, and tourism in all its forms is facing huge challenges right now. But Disney World Resort is a known quantity, and that once we're all confident about traveling, whether it's getting on an airline or chugging down the Eastern Seaboard or that sort of thing, I have no doubt that the Walt Disney World Resort will return. Will it return at full speed immediately? No. That's the saddest part for me about the layoffs at Imagineering. That signals the effect of we're not going to be doing new stuff for quite a while as we recover, but the stuff that's there is still solid, still good, and still has a diehard audience. So long term, I don't see this as a problem. Once, as you mentioned, once there's a vaccine, and once people are confident in traveling again, let the good times roll.
In terms of viability, Disney has some debt, but not a lot. And I don't think they'd have any trouble raising capital if they needed to. Because to your point, once activity starts resuming, both in travel, when we talk about movie theaters and whatnot, they're probably the most valuable media brand in the world, right? If they can't get capital to stay afloat, then capitalism as we know it is not working. So I'm not saying it's actually working great right now, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the economy would be seized if Disney can't get access to debt markets. That'd be silly.
Yep.
Do you see an orchestra returning to the Grand Floridian ever in the next 5 years or the next 10 years?
I don't know how many of you know the story of what happened with Disneyland's band, how as far back as 55 they had Mr. Vesey and his group of musicians. And that performing troupe at Disneyland has grown, has shrunk, expanded again. I think it's quite possible that once we get on the other side of the vaccine and people feeling safe to travel and that sort of thing, you'll see the niceties like live musicians playing at the Grand Floridian. But remember, for a lot of the time, you'd go in and there'd just be a guy playing the grand piano on the ground floor in the Grand Flo. I think it's quite possible that once we get on the other side of this, you'll start by seeing a trio. That the notion is when you have these monorail hotels that you want to play up as deluxe resorts, you have to have things that tell you that it's deluxe, and live music is one of those things.
I agree. I think part of the concern right now with from Disney's got to be that we don't want people from all over the country standing together in a lobby listening to a band, right? So
Yeah.
that's not going to happen for at least 6 months.
No, I agree.
The other thing, though, is, I mean, the Grand Floridian Orchestra is a good orchestra. I enjoyed my time listening to them, but I sort of feel the same way about them that I feel about my favorite band in the studios, Mulch, Sweat, and Shears, right? They ran for what, 10 or 12 years
Yep.
in the studios. And, in talking to the band, I think, one of them said, if you had told us 10 years ago that we were going to have this decade-long run where we got to meet all these people and perform all these shows, and then one day it was just going to end, we would have all taken that deal, right? Same thing with the Grand Floridian Orchestra, right? They've been there for 30 years. And if you had asked them in 1990, we'll give you a 30-year run, and then one day it's going to end all of a sudden, will you take the job? I think all of them would have said yes.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I'm sad to see them go, but let's also remember they had a great run, right? The sort of the other thing that I've been kicking around is this. I've been listening to a lot of music from Main Street USA. Every morning when I go out for my walk, I listen to subsonicradio.com, and they've got a special channel just for Main Street USA. And the thing that I'm kicking around this idea, and by the way, I could be completely wrong here, right? So I could be incredibly wrong, but here's what I'm thinking on this. The music of Main Street USA, the music of the Grand Floridian Orchestra, the music of Yeehaw Bob seems awfully white to me, right? Not a very diverse set of musical things there. This might be a time for Disney to introduce some diversity in their musical programs. Like, it wouldn't kill me one day to walk into the Magic Kingdom and walk down, Black Main Street USA. I think that would be fabulous.
I got to talk with John Hench about this once. And he was talking about the thing about the Disney theme parks is, again, you're staying there on Main Street, and it's like you're surrounded by wood and paint and steel and glass and, people in period costume. But it's so fragile that, if you walked in and they were playing Three Dog Night.
Yeah, that would be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just sort of like, it's like, okay, I could totally get on board with that. So are we, period, correct African-American music?
From the turn of the 20th century? Yeah, I'm down with that. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's some, right? There's got to be some musicians represented there. But so maybe it's just the music I was listening to on Subsonic, right? The lyrics to me seemed really sort of not representative of all the music that was happening in the early part of the 20th century.
You're not going to find a bigger Fats Waller fan on the planet. And if I came through the gate and heard Your Feet's Too Big, I would be a very happy man.
Right, yeah.
Or Ain't Misbehavin' or something like that. It's like, yeah, I mean, if Glenn, you're not wrong. That this could be a real opportunity.
Yeah, so I think, that would be a chance there. I mean, I know, like, on Main Street they play like Scott Joplin and stuff like that. But,
yeah.
It's just... Yeah, I think it's a chance. Anyway, like I said, I think the musicians they had were very good. I mean, again, and I love the Main Street music. But this is a chance to throw some diversity in there. And I think that's remember we talked last week show about inclusion as one of Disney's new 5 keys. This could be one of those chances. So
let's do it.
Next question was from our next reader email was from Maven, who says, I've really been enjoying your discussion about the history of the Disney princesses. The conversation on last week's show about Disney's slow embrace of the princesses as a viable revenue stream got me thinking. I have to think that a big part of the problem here was a gender bias that favored male audiences over female. This has certainly been a long-standing issue in other forms of entertainment and still holds true in many areas of popular culture. Even today, I'm hard-pressed to come up with a single attraction at Universal that features a female lead character. Ooh, are there any? All right, we'll have to think about that. It's not obviously not true because I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay.
Anyway, so Maven says, in the past few years, Disney's definitely done a better job balancing the mix of male versus female-driven story in the parks, but I can't help wondering if the main driver for this is the much-belated realization that there's a lot of money to be made by appealing to the other 50% of their guests. Thanks for telling the story and for bringing the parks to me every week. I look forward to every Schmurz Day when I have a new Disney dish in my playlist. Yeah, I mean, nothing will get companies to embrace diversity like finding a market in it, Jim. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. I remember when Disneyland was getting up out of the ground was when the tidal wave of Davy Crockett money was happening. So
yeah. That's how we ended up with Frontierland, right? I mean,
that's one of the reasons Frontierland was as big as it was. at the original Disneyland. It's like, ooh, there's money
Oh
to
yeah,
be had.
it's substantial there. Yeah.
Yeah, but going forward, it's been kind of interesting to watch them now that the princesses are as huge as they are. I was just reading, for example, Andrew Mooney. There were so many things that they tried. They tried the Disney Heroes line, where it was Peter Pan and Hercules and the like, and then they had the Young Knights of the Round Table, where it was.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Good try. Good try. A for effort, kids.
Swing and a miss.
That's all right.
By the way, he pointed out that Universal doesn't have a ride that necessarily stars a female character.
I'm going through the list. There are none.
Blue, the Raptor, is a girl. And they just last week announced that the Velocicoaster is happening. And there's also a Trolls thing making its way, or there was, until everything got stalled. And that was going to be
Jim,
heavily feature Poppy.
Do you need some ointment before you do the stretching? I'm a little worried you're going to pull something here.
I'm trying, Len. I'm trying. Okay.
It's a good point. Maybe great point. I would, so our friends from Universal Orlando are listening, FYI. All right. Next email is from Brent, who says, regarding Mulan, remember last week we had talked about the low amount of money that Disney made from a premium video on demand for live action Mulan. So Brent writes, I think the other factor in its success or lack thereof is the PG-13 rating. We carefully considered purchasing it to watch with our 8-year-old twins. When we read a few parents' guides, most clearly said that it was a strong PG-13 due to violence, and then we decided that we would wait for December when it's free, since it'd just be the two of us, my wife and I, watching it. Also, your comment about the difficulty in explaining your profession to a future spouse while at Applebee's, the fact that you're at Applebee's might have more to do with your success or failure in dating than your theme park profession.
Oh, come
on.
Brent.
Wow, dude. A little harsh there. Nothing wrong with an Applebee's, man. There's sometimes you just want to, So true story. I think was it Applebee's that a couple years ago did like an endless appetizers promotion, and I took Hannah, my daughter, there. And it was like the greatest day of her life to that point. It was the waitress sat down this pile of cheese sticks and potato skins in front of her. And it was like Christmas in, I think it was like September or whatever. Like the child was literally as happy as I've ever seen her. It was kind of amazing.
I do want to say, I think it was Esquire, and I forget the writer, who did an entire piece where he arrived at an Applebee's at 11.
Yes, I remember. I read this. And tried to eat.
Just nothing but appetizers. And just it was Super Size Me, the 24 hours edition.
He made it. I can't remember if it was a man or woman who wrote it, but they made it through like 4 orders of cheese sticks. Then was like, and then it sort of like set in on them of what the enormity of what they had to do.
Yes.
Oh yeah. It was a great article. I remember.
It was. Gradually and very bleak writing.
All right. Next question from Dave. On a previous show, you described a proposed Disneyland parade that involved a spaceship and aliens, but couldn't come up with a film franchise that fit into the park. Remember, this was the question from Xavier on Disney parades that never happened, right? And so Dave writes, what about the Witch Mountain franchise? So there are 3 films in the Witch Mountain franchise. The 1975 Escape to Witch Mountain, which, by the way, my parents took me to see at a drive-in. The 1978 Return from Witch Mountain, and of course the 2009 completion of the trilogy Race to Witch Mountain with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I saw in theaters with my daughter Hannah.
Okay. That, by the way, is worth it for the Dick Cook cameo. It was just about the time that Dick was wrapping up his run as the head of Walt Disney Studios. But if you remember, there's a train wreck in the middle of it. And
both literal and figurative.
There we go. And for about 2 seconds on screen, you get to see the engineer. And there in his full regalia is Dick Cook.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And he literally went out with a bang, folks. On the other hand, building a parade around the Witch Mountain thing. Again, Len, what do you remember from the Witch Mountain movie that you saw?
So I've seen at least 2 of the 3 of them. I remember darkness, mountains, and a lot of frantic running.
Okay.
That's what and Eddie Albert, I think, is in the first one.
There we go.
He's dead now, right?
Yes, he is. And I think this film may have killed him. or at least killed his career. Does the phrase flying Winnebago mean anything to you?
That's right. This was the era of flying cars in Disney films with
That's
Herbie
right.
and
That's right.
yeah. I forgot about that.
Okay, so Dave, wonderful suggestion, but when I think Witch Mountain, it kind of boils down to Eddie Albert and a Winnebago. And after that, I got nothing.
Eddie Albert and a flying Winnebago. Yeah, if I'm at Imagineering, which by the way has no more employees, but if I'm one of the people left in Imagineering,
Yeah.
I'm pitching Eddie Albert and a flying Winnebago as a isn't basically this the pitch for one of the Harry Potter rides with a flying car? Like same thing, but just British?
And on that scene, no, Len, you may be onto something here, because one of the things that killed the flying car was the fact that you only could get 4 people in at a time. That's why eventually we got Escape from Gringotts. You got the multi-train thing going there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Winnebago, larger. Yeah.
Larger, you could put more people in it. Okay, suddenly this is a viable idea. Dave, okay, we're going to give you credit for it. If it shows up in the park, it's Dave's ride.
It's Dave's idea. Yeah. All right, there we go. All right. Last email from Ken, who says, I was listening to a recent Disney Dish podcast on my way to visit my daughter at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, where you talked about robots in the Star Wars Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
They have robots delivering food all over the Bowling Green campus and out into the neighborhoods near the school. It looks like they go a mile or so off campus to make deliveries. It wasn't busy when I was there. I think they have less than half the normal students on campus right now, but I was there on a Saturday morning, so not too many people around. And they don't seem to have too many problems with people or crossing streets and the crosswalks. And Ken sent in some video that he took of the little robots driving around. And yeah, it looks like it's got 6 wheels and it's driving around delivering food. They walk at about 4 miles an hour, or they run at about 4 miles an hour, which is a little bit faster than most people walk. But yeah.
Now, somebody sent me video of one of these. Is this the same one that it looks like
a cooler on wheels?
Well, yeah, it's kind of if SpongeBob had unnatural relations with a shopping cart.
Jeff, the fact that I described it as a cooler on wheels and you said that.
It's yellow and got eyes on the front. It's just, I'm sorry. Okay. I looked at it like, that's very SpongeBob-like. Okay, well.
Man, just stay on your medication. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, but the robots exist and they're out and working, so that's pretty fabulous. And I did love the video, so thank you very much, Ken. All right, folks, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim continues with a discussion of the Disney princesses in the parks. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
On the last episode, Jim and I talked about how Andrew Mooney had turned the Disney princesses into a full-blown franchise, launching a new business line in 2001, and then by 2006, turning it into a $3 billion a year ongoing concern. So, Jim, where do you want to pick up?
That's an interesting moment because, again, you had the Imagineers who, okay, we waited, and it's not a Beanie's Babies. It's not going to blow itself out. And certainly after they opened the first Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique in World of Disney, it used to be Downtown Disney, now Disney Springs. I had a friend in Imagineering reach out and said, okay, everything you said, true. However, he wanted to point out, for example, that at least when it came to Walt Disney World, there was a certain way the company handled new characters. That from the day that MGM opened in May of '89, when the company was introducing new characters, they made their debut at the studio park. And then after, a set number of years, if these characters had shown they had legs, and insert your own Ariel joke here. They would then go to live happily ever after at the Magic Kingdom. So this, for example, is how Voyage of the Little Mermaid, which opened at MGM in January of 92, eventually led to Ariel's Grotto, which opened at the Magic Kingdom in the fall of 96. Similarly, the live stage of Beauty and the Beast led to Storytime with Belle. That debuted at the Magic Kingdom in September of 99. And then the Royal Caravan Parade that used to roll through MGM, that led to the Magic Carpets of Agrabah, which opened in May of 2001. Now, mind you, sometimes it took a while to live happily ever after. Mermaid made it over to the kingdom fastest. It was 4.5 years, whereas Aladdin took 9.5 years.
Wow.
That's up and running by 2001. And in this same period of time, Disney is now kicking the tires for a new 3D movie that was supposed to debut in Hong Kong and then eventually go to the other parks around the world. And through various reasons, it wound up opening at the Magic Kingdom first in 2003. We're talking about Mickey's PhilharMagic. As my Imagineer friend pointed out, said, we're first year when we're watching this $300 billion new business line just burst out of the ground. It's like, woof, okay. That actually impacted what we put into Mickey's PhilharMagic. I mean, if you think about it, the first musical number is Be Our Guest. The second number is Ariel, swimming around with Donald and singing Part of Your World. And then the middle, we get our fly over Agrabah at night, and we even have a moment where Jasmine personally interacts with Donald. But the other thing that's really fascinating about when they were working at PhilharMagic initially, the host of the attraction was supposed to be Tinkerbell. So here's Imagineering literally taking the spreadsheet from Disney Princesses. And okay, we got Jasmine, we got Belle, we got Ariel, and we got Tinkerbell. And it was Michael Eisner himself who actually pulled Tinkerbell out of the show. They showed him the work in progress, and he's like, look, this is cute, but it's not funny. It doesn't have a whole lot of energy. I mean, couldn't we get a more chaotic character in here like Donald?
So how are they going to do Tinkerbell? I mean, Donald talks, but in a Donald Duck voice. Mm-hmm. Tinkerbell would have to basically pantomime.
But you see that.
Oh, hold on and pause. Let me just say, have you seen the first episode of the new season of the Great British Baking Show?
I have not.
One of the contestants lists their occupation as pantomime producer. And I'm like I'm looking at the subtitles like, did someone get the subtitle wrong on this? Like, what is pantomime producer is the job title that I would not have come up with.
See, now we have to get you over to the UK, though, because for the holidays over in the UK, they do these amazing seasonal pantomimes where they will do...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll do the story of Aladdin, or they'll do the story of Cinderella, but it's these elaborately costumed, beautifully produced, incredibly funny shows that are, they've done it too loud. I mean, a pantomime over there means something very different from here. The annoying mime in front of the public library. No, this is
exactly what I'm thinking. Like,
get out of the box. Stop walking against the wind. It's like, no, do a British pantomime. Get a guy in here in a dress and hit him with a slap.
Well, thank you for that, Jim. I've learned something today. Go ahead.
Okay. But the interesting thing is that one of the reasons they were zeroing on Tinkerbell and that she communicated through pantomime was the fact that this attraction was supposed to debut in Hong Kong. And at Hong Kong, if you go to get on the Jungle Cruise, there were 3 boats parked there. And they ask you, well, do you want the narration in Mandarin, Cantonese, or English? So you have to create 3 different spots to load boats to deal with the 3 different languages that come into that park. And so the thinking was, if we have a character that only commutes through pantomime, it's like, one cue, just send them all into the theater. And so they were trying to express this to Mr. Eisner to the effect of, well, no, if we were dealing with 3 different languages, and Michael shuts him down, it's like, it's Donald Duck. Nobody understands what he's saying. So right. Why would we need to dub it? But, the duck is clearly not speaking in Cantonese. So they get that attraction going with all the input from Disney. That's up and running by 2003. They're still watching it ramp up. They're still watching it make money. So the notion is in the mid-2000s, 20,000 Leagues has been closed since September of 94. So you have this giant piece of real estate with the huge show building back there. that could be made use of. And this is the most popular land at the most popular theme park that Disney has in Florida. So it's the manager's
Right.
like, look, let's do it. And the Imagineers are, okay, we got that request from Florida. We have all this data from Andrew Mooney on Disney Princesses. Let's go. September 2009, Jay Rasulo stands on stage at the D23 Expo. And a lot of the stuff that Jay laid out that day is in that park today, and we love it.
But hold on, let me pause here and say one of the great Jim Hill moments of all time was September 12th, 2009, because you had told me 2 years before that exactly what Jay Rasulo was going to announce 2 years later. You had the new Fantasyland lineup nailed 2 years before it became public. I put it in the unofficial guide, I think, in 2008, which means I wrote it in 2007.
This is, again, what makes me sad about 400 people leaving the Glendale campus. It's like some of my sources are going with them.
Yeah, 410 sources of yours right out the door, Jim. Jeez.
But right out the bat, we've got things like Be Our Guest or Gaston's Tavern. And again, the gimme of the little, Voyage of the Little Mermaid ride that was going to go here as well as DCA. But then in the middle of the land, there was this giant show building that facing into New Fantasyland was the Tremaine Chateau. It's where the Lady Tremaine and her two daughters, Cinderella's ugly stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella, live. And then on the other side of the building, facing into the New Fantasyland, we got the Woodcutter's Cottage, where the three good fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, had been hiding away Princess Aurora for 16 years.
Right.
If you got in the queue for the Cinderella experience, you made your way into the house and you eventually found yourself looking out into the backyard at the very moment that the fairy godmother gives Cinderella her gown. And then Cinderella sees you inside, comes inside and greets you in her gown, and then explains, well, I'm about to leave for the ball and I'm a little nervous. And does anybody here know anything about how to curtsy? And it's like, they pull a couple little girls out and they teach her how to curtsy. And so, and does anybody know how to waltz? And they grab a few of the little boys and they teach Cinderella how to waltz. And she thanks them. Then she steps out into the backyard and there is the pumpkin coach, and she climbs in the coach and she rides off. And that's what you got to experience.
So I'm actually looking at the 2009 concept art right now, and I see the manor house or the small castle and everything. Yeah, the thing that jumps out here to me is that it's a lot of character greetings, shops, and restaurants. And there are, other than Under the Sea, Voyage of the Little Mermaid, there are no rides.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water though. So there's a lagoon or a lake or a moat that we would have crossed to get to the village, Beauty and the Beast village. And the moat or the water around Under the Sea is much more substantial than what we ended up with here.
You've kind of nailed what eventually killed this version of the project. Same thing if we do the woodcutter thing. You're supposed to show up the day that Aurora has turned 16. And you come in and the three good fairies are, doing all the birthday stuff we saw from the film, and you literally get invited to sit down at the kitchen table, and there's construction paper and crayons and safety scissors, and you can make a birthday card for Briar Rose, which you then get to give her when she walks into the cottage. And then I still don't understand this transition point, but at one point the fairies kind of go, well, thank you for coming, and now if you could please exit, we have to have a really kind of an unfortunate conversation with Briar Rose to reveal she's actually a princess, and she has to give up Prince Charming or Prince Philip and all that. And it's just sort of like, wow, well, that's a happy moment to send somebody into a gift shop on. But Mooney had also prepped. In fact, this was just getting out of the ground at the same time these plans are being nailed. The Disney Fairies franchise, which was supposed to be a transition point for girls who were aging up out of Princess. So they had a mini land within a land. So you could go to, for example, the Pixie Dust Tree, which was the central icon of Neverland, at least as far as Disney fairies are concerned.
Where was this in the, if I'm in the Magic Kingdom right now, where was this going to be?
These pieces started to move around. Barnstormer was always going to stay right where it was, but directly across the street from Barnstormer is where Pixie Hollow was going to be built.
Now, that's what this it looks like giant plants, pink flowers over where the Pete's Silly Circus or Sideshow and the Big Top.
Yeah, in fact, well, remember
Ooh,
the initial plan was Eat Silly Sideshow and the circus tent store setup with the character meet and greets. It's there today, that a legacy from Mickey's Toontown Fair. That was going to be torn down. That was actually where Dumbo was originally supposed to go.
Right. Okay. So I see in this concept art that's where the ferry, that area is where the ferries were gonna.
Yeah. The ferries were basically going to sit between Barnstormer, and as you walk past the aerial meet and greet, you go straight into Pixie Hollow. But there was a flat ride that was going to circle around the base of the tree that was much the same way as in a Bug's Land in California, that as you emptied Pixie Hollow, you then became Pixie size. So you were going to be able to ride around in all of these found objects that Tink had found and had made into ride vehicles. And then there was going to be
you're right. I see it's an oval shape, the border of this particular thing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, also has a meet and greet component. You could go into a giant-sized lantern similar to the one that Captain Hook captured Tink in the original Peter Pan, and get your photo and do a meet and greet with a character. It's a lot of meet and greets. It's a lot of extended interactive experiences.
Frankly, there's not a lot there for boys.
No,
That's
there
the
isn't.
thing, right?
There isn't. And Jay Rasulo had been a good soldier. He had done what the Magic Kingdom people had asked of him, and he had also taken all of the info that Adrian Mooney had given him and cobbled together this land that worked the Venn diagram. But remember, he announces it September 2009. In November of 2009, we get that very strange announcement from Bob Iger, where he's going to have Thomas Staggs, who's at that point the CFO of the Walt Disney Company, Jay Rasulo, who again is chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts. They're going to swap jobs because Bob hadn't quite decided who he was going to get as his second in command, and he felt that in both cases Jay needed more Jay needed more financial experience, where Tom, if he was going to be taken seriously for the second in command position, as a CFO, needed more time in the parks. Tom Staggs is now the chairman of Disney Parks starting in early 2010. He's doing the exact same thing you're doing, Len. He's looking at it. He's got two small boys at home, and he shows them the plans, and it's like, Dad, that's for girls. That's all for girls. And he's also troubled by the fact that, Center of the Land has two attractions that key off of IPs that one film was released in 1950 and the other one was released in 59. And Tom's looking over his shoulder and is like, didn't we just release Princess and the Frog in November of last year? It's our first African-American princess. Shouldn't she have representation in the parks? Aren't we going to maybe get hammered if we don't have some way to bring her in?
Valid point, yeah.
But at the same time, here's Tom starting to talk with folks at Imagineering about his concerns, and they're like, Mr. Staggs, the bulldozers are moving. They've already knocked down the 20,000 Leagues show building. We've already shut down Ariel's Grotto. We've already pulled down Pooh's Playful Spot. I mean, this project's on the move. You really want to change the plan now? What he said and how he did it is what we'll talk about on the next Disney Dish. And I swear to God, Len, it's the final installment.
Well, so I didn't realize we were going to tie this into the new Fantasyland stuff, but that's super interesting because it does explain why we got what we got.
Yeah. But again, we'll get to that on the next show.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Disney Dish show today. Please head on over to disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes, including in-park audio and a special series on the Disneyland Circus. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who's judging the two-crusted blueberry pie contest at this year's Maine Harvest Festival, Sunday, November 22nd, from noon to 3 p.m. at the Clock Tower Hallway Meeting Rooms in beautiful downtown Bangor, Maine. While Aaron's doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.